I can still see his smug face on the television, that crocodile grin splashed across every news channel as they dubbed him the financial genius of the decade. Arthur Penhaligon. A name once synonymous with success, now whispered with fear and loathing among those who knew the truth. For years, he was the untouchable mogul, the Wall Street prodigy who could do no wrong, until he did, and I made it my mission to unravel the web of deceit he'd so carefully woven. It all started with a phone call. My mother's voice trembled on the other end, telling me how her retirement savings had vanished, how she wasn't alone. Scores of pensioners, trusting souls, had put their entire nest eggs into Penhaligon's hands, only to discover that their savings had been siphoned away into a labyrinth of offshore accounts. They were left penniless, dreams shattered, futures stolen. I remember sitting in my cramped apartment, rage bubbling inside me like molten lava. How could he? And more importantly, how could I fight back? With nothing but a burning sense of justice and a college degree in forensic accounting, I set off on a journey that would consume my life. Underneath the facade of his glossy offices lay layers of lies and deceit. I started by taking a job at one of his lesser-known subsidiaries, a paper company buried deep in the corporate maze. It was the kind of job that paid little and demanded even less, perfect for someone looking to dig without arousing suspicion. Night after night, I pored over financial records, my eyes red-rimmed and weary. I traced every cent that passed through that company, charting its course like a bloodhound on a scent. The first break came unexpectedly, like a gust of wind through a locked window. I found a series of transactions disguised as charitable contributions. Money was funneled through a fake charity, a shell company that led back to a string of seemingly unrelated businesses, each transaction carefully crafted to appear legitimate. But there it was, the trail of the blood ledger, as I came to call it. With each discovery, my resolve hardened. I documented everything meticulously, compiling evidence, names, dates, amounts, each piece fitting into a puzzle that was slowly taking shape. I knew I needed help, someone who could infiltrate the tech side of Penhaligon's empire. That's when I reached out to Leo, an old friend from college, whose hacking skills were legendary. He was hesitant at first, wary of poking the bear, but when I told him about the pensioners, he agreed. We were a team forged in fire, united by purpose. Leo worked his magic, breaching the inner sanctum of Penhaligon's digital fortress. Firewalls melted under his fingertips, exposing hidden account numbers and encrypted files. The deeper we dug, the filthier it got. I discovered how Penhaligon had used layers of fake identities and encrypted pathways to move money across continents, all while covering his tracks with sickening finesse. It wasn't just the audacity of his crimes that fueled me, but the arrogance. Arthur Penhaligon thought himself above the law, untouchable by mere mortals like us. As the evidence mounted, so did the pressure. Days turned into weeks, and the constant fear of being discovered gnawed at me. I took to wearing a different cap each day, a silly act of rebellion to feel invisible, a trick to soothe my paranoia. The most harrowing moment came when I accidentally left my notes at work, a rookie mistake that could have cost everything. I spent the entire weekend in a state of panic, convinced I'd been found out. It turned out no one noticed, a lucky break that renewed my determination, but reminded me of the thin ice I skated on. Finally, armed with an undeniable dossier of proof, we decided it was time to act, but we needed a plan as audacious as Penhaligon's crimes. Returning the money wasn't just about wiring it back. Those accounts were frozen, watched by regulatory hawks. We needed to orchestrate a financial symphony that would unravel his empire without alerting him until it was too late. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss another one. Leo was brilliant, devising a digital heist that rerouted funds back to their rightful owners, small, unnoticeable transactions that would gradually restore what was stolen. It was an intricate dance, one mistake away from disaster. On execution day, my nerves were electric. Leo was in his element, fingers flying over the keyboard as I monitored for any signs of detection. It felt like hours passed in those tense minutes. When he finally leaned back, breathless and triumphant, the relief was palpable. The following weeks brought a flurry of news. Headlines screamed of Penhaligon's downfall, his empire crumbling under investigations and audits. Authorities pounced, seizing assets and freezing accounts. The pensioners were slowly, quietly, made whole again. There were no grand announcements, no public acknowledgments of our deeds. But the satisfaction of knowing justice was served, that was enough for me. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Penhaligon was arrested, his smirk replaced by a look of stunned disbelief as he was led away in cuffs. His trial became a media circus, but I stayed away, content with watching from the shadows. It wasn't about recognition for me. It was about righting a wrong, about giving back to those who'd been mercilessly cheated. I've since left that world behind. The corporate jungle and its deceitful ways hold no allure for me anymore. I'm not sure what comes next. For now, I'm content with the knowledge that I made a difference, even if it was in secret. Sometimes I wonder if Penhaligon ever realized who was behind his downfall. Maybe he suspected, or maybe I was just a ghost to him, a face in the endless crowd of people he trampled over. I like to think of myself not as a vigilante, but as a guardian, a protector of those who needed a voice when they had none. On quiet nights, I find myself reflecting on all that happened. I don't regret a thing. If I've learned anything, it's that justice is a relentless force. No matter how deep you bury your transgressions, someone, somewhere, will dig them up and hold them to the light. And that someone might just be an ordinary woman with an extraordinary cause.